just walking in, this one says he listens, this one says he listens. So it's a special chashivas that Rabbi Schachter was masking to come. Just want to thank for a moment Reb Svidov and Moshe for putting it together and for sponsoring and for making everything runs. A lot of things happen behind the scenes. So Yashikoyach, the Eivish is also given Koyach and Moyach Adante.
Okay, thank you very much, Rabbi Saish Kayach Kvaid Harav. It's always a tremendous schus. It says that there's a special schus for people that live by the border. You're coming down Flatbush Avenue, you make a right turn and you see Hamish people, you say, wow, this is certain halachas, a special protective koiches, special siyata d'shmaya. There's also a special feeling in a besmedrash like this. People know each other. There's more of a... The more you get into the v'mazuk the shmals, the individual doesn't stand out as much because there's just too many people at one time. And here, the more you go out a little bit, there's more. Every single person on his own is. You're not just a social security number. You're not just a card to give out by Yisker to get donation. You're a human being. Someone cares to you, and it's a Kehal that's together, and I think that's something to be thankful for. So talking about being thankful for, I always wondered, the pilgrims that they landed and they made Thanksgiving, and they were very thankful. If they would see the country today, would they be so thankful? I don't know, maybe yes. I don't know. The pilgrims, not much for history, but they paid a huge price: starvation, disease, tax on the Indians. Would they recognize the country that they gave their lives for? Or maybe you could argue, listen, the Rebbeinu Shalom has his plans, how countries develop, and the plan is still going on. We don't know what the full plan is. And they did for what they did for themselves, and whatever happens, happens. So you know that there's a minig Aviseinu B'Yadeinu, goes all the way back. I'm not sure where exactly the Makar is, that the president pardons a turkey. So he gives a pardon to Turkey. They say Biden did it with an auto pen, but it wasn't the Kehal. The president pardons a turkey. That turkey that they schlepped out and was pardoned, I think the turkey is thankful? Probably not, because he doesn't know what was in for him, right? He doesn't know what was waiting for him. So basically, I want to try to think about this for a moment. So we're only thankful when we recognize an imminent danger, and we thank Hashem that we're out of it. So there's an Eitzah type that's brought down in the Svarim. Be thankful before you know what the danger is. Why do I have to wait for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to remind me that I need Him? I'm thankful to start with. This is where I am. So I had a friend that his child, many years ago, his child was in an accident. He was in an accident actually, Erev Pesach. And Tzala took him in, and one of the kids was acting a little funny, and Tzala had suggested that they take him to Colombia just to check him out. That they knew him. And they took him and they ran a battery of tests, and he was obviously anxious to get an answer, anxious about his child, and anxious to get home on Pesach more than anything else. Lamaisa, they came out and they said to him like this. They said that the initial test looked, everything seems to be okay. They're waiting for some more results. They don't want to hold him here. They understand it's Yom Tov. They said, go home. And if we see in the secondary test that there's a reason to call you back, we'll call you back. So they called the Rav, and he said, maybe I shouldn't go home if I have to be called back. They said, no, they don't think they're going to have to call him back, so he came home. And that night, the phone rang. The phone rang, and on the caller ID it said Columbia Presbyterian. And he ran to ask the Rav if he could answer, and the Rav said, sure, answer. He ran back. By the time he ran back, it was too late. Then he ran to ask, should he call back? Called back. They couldn't trace where the call came from. Called the office in Colombia that they spoke to. They said, as far as we know, we didn't call. He said, listen, someone called. It said Colombia. And this thing repeated itself on the first day Yom Tif, on the second day Yom Tif. And each time they called back, and each time they said, they didn't call. So at one point he asked the Rav if he should just go back. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. He said, look, if they're telling you they didn't call. So finally, Matzah Yom Tif was going out of his mind, and he came back, drove down to the hospital and said, what's going on? It turned out that the call that he was getting was an automated call from the parking garage to let him know that he has a discount as an outpatient. So he came to his Rav, and he said, why did the Rebbeinu Shem do this to me? So he says, you don't understand? It was Bashet Min HaShamayim, they should call you from the hospital. So the Rebbeinu Shem said, let it be from the parking garage. Okay. And you can look at life two ways. You can say, I can't believe it. You woke up. You say, wow, what a dream. So he couldn't fall asleep, went back into shul. He sees a neighbor sitting there saying Tillim. He goes over to him, he says, puts his arms around him and says, are you worried about your wedding? He goes, no. You have money? No. So why are you not worried? He goes, because you're going to pay for my wedding. He says, how do you know? He says, the Rebbe came to me in a dream and said, I took care of it. Okay. So there's a dream of Ruach HaKodesh. And then there's a higher level, a dream of Nevuah. Okay. Says the Maharsha in the Masechtas Brachos, Daf Nun Hey Amud Beis. Then when it comes to dream, he starts with the highest level. The highest level is through a malach, which apparently is what Yaakov Avinu saw. He saw malachim going up and down. V'hu chaloim amiti, that's a true dream. And usually that kind of dream comes, says the Maharsha, shachris, the last third of the night. So be careful with those dreams that you have in the morning when you wake up and you're about to slam down on your alarm clock. Take it easy. There's another level of dream, says the Maharsha, which is also a message from Shemayim, which is probably what the Rebbeinu B'chaya calls Ruach HaKodesh. It comes through Merecha Shemayim, U'b'chlaloi al yedei shed, it comes through whatever that means, and that's in the middle part of the night. The Yesh Lehen Milamata, says the Maharsha, there's the first level, which he calls the third, he's going in the opposite direction, that a person sees what he was thinking about during the day, and the Gemara says a story that the king asked Shmuel, what am I going to dream about tonight? He said, your enemy will attack you, and you're going to be imprisoned, and you're going to be grinding pits, with a golden grinder, and sure enough, he had that dream. Okay? So, those are the dreams that we worry about, that we think about in our life. Those dreams come first part of the night. So basically, the Maharsha and the Rebbeinu B'chaya are saying the same thing, that there are dreams which are just our mind, it's our own fantasies working out in our mind. There are dreams which are at a higher level, and there's Nevuah, which is on a totally different level. Which would explain why there are certain dreams that don't register on the scientist's instrument, because it's coming from someplace else. If a person has a difficult dream, or you're worried about the dream, so a simple thing to do is to go over to 3 people and say Hatavas Chalam. Say Reb Chaim made Hatavas Chalam every single day, in case he had a dream. And there's a nusach in the Siddur to say Hatavas Chalam. In that nusach, we said there's Gimel Hafachais, Hafach to turn around, Gimel Pediyais, 3 things to redeem, Gimel Shleimus, 3 things to be complete. 3 times we say the word flip. Hafachta nisbedi lamachali, pitachta saki v'tezveni simcha. And we also say v'hafachti evlam l'sase, we'll turn around in the morning to Joyce, and we say v'yahafach Hashem l'kachas aklal l'brach. 3 times we use the word redeeming, if you look at the nusach in the Siddur. Pada b'shalom nafshi, v'yivdu amas yoinisin, v'teduya Hashem yeshuvin. 3 times we use the word shalom. V'ata shalom, yibeis l'shalom, v'chalash l'chashalom. The Maharsha explains that the Vayahafach goes on the dreams that we have that frighten us. But they're only in our mind. You had a terrible experience during the day. At night you have a terrible dream. So there we say there's an emotion that's within you. It has to be turned over. Take that emotion. You can't suppress it. Convert it and say, I'm charged. I feel emotionally scared. You know what? I'm doing something with it. That's the Eitzah for the first dream. The Eitzah for the second dream is Pediyah, to be redeemed. I'm getting a message from Shemayim. Every Gzerim in the Shemayim comes down, bracha. Total bracha. Why am I getting a message that's frightening me? Because there's bracha in this gzeira that has to be redeemed. That's how the Mashal explains it. And then there's shleimus. Sometimes we can all be zeichet in nevuah in a certain way, but you have to be zeichet in the nevuah. Ein akeli machzik bracha only until when it happens. I was in Australia many years ago. You go once to Australia. Second time is rough. First time you don't know what you're in for. Traveling. Being there was very good. And they took me to a fascinating thing. I had a wonderful host named Mr. Holson. He took me to a place. And he said it was near the shul that eventually was burnt down, it was being rebuilt. And he said this was the original mikveh. And there wasn't much left of it, but he said for years this was the mikveh till they built a regular mikveh. He said, my father built this mikveh. I said, your father built this mikveh? So yeah, my father came to Australia. He couldn't get into America after the war, couldn't get into Canada. Came to Australia. And my father, during the war, the Germans made him destroy matzevis. He was in this unit that destroyed matzeh. He had to smash down the monuments and use the concrete to build roads. That's it. Very few people survived it. But his father survived it. He said, every single night I have dreams. I have dreams. I see myself knocking down matzevis. I see the neshamis of the people coming with tainas. I see making the roads that the Germans used their tanks on. And therapy, nothing helps. So the Rav told him, this marsha. And he said, your dreams are the experience that you have. Hafachta, you have to turn it around. If you're going to let it float, it's going to destroy you. Take that koyach and convert it. Use your knowledge that you have in concrete and use it for a bracha. And the next day I heard we were struggling with a mikveh. They said, I'm doing the mikveh. And I went around to different parts in Melbourne, which wasn't as a modernized city as it was then. We found old concrete barriers that were being carted away or taken down. I, with my experience, took I don't know if he had a permit or not, but he took apart the concrete, and he wound up building a mikveh with it. And he wound up, I said it took him 1.5 years to do. But the mikveh was functional for quite a while. And he said that, I felt that was my nekama on the Germans. I felt that was my nekama on the Germans. I said the story someplace, someone told me a story, that he was in a day school someplace, and a man walked in, and he said he's a retired printer, and he would like to do copies for the work here for copies, do copies for the Rebbe's. He said, who are you? We have a copy boy. Give the copy boy a different job. I'll do it. And he started working. He said, no, your machines are outdated. I want to donate new machines. So first they were scared. Who's this? But no, they researched. They said, he's okay. He had a business many years. He had a printing business. And he did it. He bought new copy machines, and every Rebbe, they gave him a copy. He worked on the booklets and it put out, and he worked on it for a while. And at one point, after like 2 years, he said, okay, retiring. He never took money. They said to him, now why are you retiring? He said that the Germans made me, I worked in a printing shop, I had to print their propaganda. And he said, it irked me my entire life. And he said, a Rav gave him the same eitzah, a facht in this. He said, I'm going to use it. He said, I know, I approximated how many copies I made for the Germans. I think he made German flags. He said, I bought new machines, the machines you keep. He said, don't worry about it, keep in yeshiva. They had a counter, and I counted up the amount of copies I made for the Germans, and I made it for the Rebbe, and I said, now I'm at ease. So the dreams that have to do with Ruach HaKodesh, the dreams that have to do with Nevuah, okay, we'll have to speak to those that have Ruach HaKodesh. But the dreams that bother us, the dreams that frighten us, the dreams that can get us down, the answer to that is, don't try to, okay, if a person needs help, but don't try to destroy it. Take it and use it. Take that koyach and convert it. Where can I convert it to bracha? I read a story of someone that witnessed Pearl Harbor, witnessed the horrors of what was going on, and the person was going out of his mind, and he became a medic. And he said, and they said, well, I'm a medic. I'll see accidents. I'll relive it. But it was a secular story. But the person said the same thing. He said it saved his life. He was going out of his mind. He said he took the experiences and converted it, and used it for bracha. So my father's Chayil Vracha was in Shanghai during the war. When he came back, he would meet someone. That's how he was. He did it in Shanghai. He did it here. We ever went with a car service driver that was Russian. The Russians were just coming, and he would say to them, "Your kids go to yeshiva. Why not?" That guy had charata for taking this fear. He didn't let him go. And there was a neighbor on my block. And he said, my father got a hold of him, and convinced him to send his kids to school, to yeshiva, whatever. After my father passed away, I would say 4 months, I went to sleep Shabbos afternoon after the chon. Now, I want to tell you, when you go to sleep Shabbos afternoon after the chon, that is very mesugel for dreams then, for a variety of different reasons. Scientifically, biologically. I'm sure the dreams you have after the chon have to do with Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah. I mean, it just has to be, right? Know the story of the king who couldn't fall asleep? The king could not fall asleep under any set of circumstances. So they tried everything, therapy and hypnosis, and nothing worked. So finally they came to him and they said, there's a Jew outside, he says he has something that can do it. He's desperate. And the guy brought in as a Hungarian show, and the king wolfed it down, he's gone. When he woke up, he said, how come none of you people could have done this for me? Only he? What's going on over here? They said, we don't know, we'll send it into the CDC for analysis. And they sent in the chunk, they came back, and the king said, did you figure it out? He says, well, we figured out why you fell asleep. He goes, what didn't you figure out? How you woke up? We have no idea. So I had this dream, Shabbos afternoon. I had this dream that I was in my father's house, and my father was there Shabbos afternoon. He was wearing his chalatl that he was wearing, and somebody was knocking at the door. And for whatever reason, both me and my father went to the door, and we opened the door, and this man was there, the man from next door that he used to learn with. And he said to my father, you're not learning with me anymore. He used to learn with him every Shabbos afternoon. What? You're not learning with me anymore. And my father turned to me and said, no. I remember his gesture with his hands. And we all three walked into the sukkah on the back porch. I woke up, V'hinei chalon. There it said, there it was V'hinei chalon. Okay? Matzah Shabbos, my mother, Tzchon Bracha, called me, Allah Shalom, and she's petrified. What happened? She says, Shabbos afternoon, the sukkah caved in. The sukkah should have caved in a long time ago, but it caved in there. And here I saw the dream, and I remember I went to the Mashgiach, I went to Rav Wilson, I went to the Rebbe Zazan, and they said, look, if your father did this during his lifetime, so the Mashiach showed me Chasam Sofer. The Chasam Sofer says an interesting thing. The question is, do I have to a Tavas Chum? Let's say I saw a dream, and I was thinking about something, and that night I had a dream. So the next day, I'm not getting into whether you should fast or not, should I give tzedakah? Because I know I saw something, and that put the idea in my mind. Does that mean I have to do tshuva? The Chasam Sofer says yes. Because you have to think, why min hashamayim did you see it? If you saw it, then do something, So I called the guy up, and he said to me, this Shabbos, I was just thinking, I wish I could call you and ask you to learn with me. I don't know if you do these things. I miss it. That's what he said. And I learned with him for many, many years. Okay. So the shaila is the Marsha, so he talks about dreams at the beginning of the night, middle of the night, and toward the end of the night. He doesn't talk about dreams after the chant. Right? But believe it or not, in Shulchan Aruch, there is mention to it. There is mention to it. The din is that if someone has a dream, a scary dream, on Shabbos, so the Gemara says in the Sechtes Brachos, if he feels that he's scared, he should fast even on Shabbos. But he has to fast another day to make up for the fact that he fasted on Shabbos, which is a whole concept on its own. That not everything in our life is right or wrong. There are things that we have to do, and sometimes it's right, and sometimes it's wrong, and sometimes you have to do something even though it's right and wrong, and correct the wrong. Not everything is clear-cut. Not everything is yes or no. How does the story go? There was a Yiddilah that came to court. The judge said, did you commit the crime or not? He says, well, Your Honor, let me explain to you. Yes or no? So let me explain to you. No, yes or no? He says, Your Honor, everything is yes or no? Yes, every question is yes or no. He says, can I ask you a question that won't be yes or no? Any question you ask me will be yes or no. He says, good. Is it true in the last 6 months you stopped taking bribes? He's going to answer yes or no. What are you going to answer? Not everything is clear-cut. So Chazal say, yes, if you feel you have to, then do it on Shabbos. So there's a machloikis in the Gemara. So it actually says in Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah brings this, that if you have a dream Shabbos afternoon, and there's a sheet in Shulchan Aruch that says, the Ramah brings that you should continue to fast. And again, I'm not saying you should fast. The Shloah Kodesh says you shouldn't fast if you have a dream on Shabbos. We're not on that madrega. And the Ramah also brings a sheet that we don't know what our dreams really mean. But there's a shita that you should fast, those that would fast, from when you wake up into the night. Some say till the night, some say 12 hours into the night. So obviously there is something. And the Ber Heitev says, Dafka Shabbos afternoon. Shabbos afternoon, there could be a kind of a dream. It doesn't affect someone that has a dream when he takes a nap, wherever he is. The question is also, when we say the person should possibly fast on Shabbos, is that a heter? He feels he needs to fast, and that he's very worried about his dream. Or is that what he's supposed to do? Many Rishonim learn, no, we don't want you to fast on Shabbos. But if you feel you're so worried, and the only thing that's going to relax you is fasting, then you can. But the Ramah says, not on dreams, not on stam dreams, because we don't know what stam dreams are. He gives a list of 3 dreams, on these dreams you should fast. I would care not to list them, because then we're all going to have the dreams. Right? It says, Kol Yoshev V'Tanis B'Shabbos Karen Le'Gzardina Yishel Shivim Shona. That's what it says, but you pay a price for being Oynik Shabbos. It also says if you answer Omen Yehesh Mei Rabba Karen Le'Gzardina Yishel Shivim Shona, that's a lot easier than fasting. The Ostrovs used to fast on Shabbos, and somebody said to him, people, what are you doing? He says, people will learn from you. He says, no one's going to learn from me. No one's going to copy me. Don't worry. But it says if a person has a problem with Oynik Shabbos, his eating hurts him. He's not comfortable eating. His Oynik Shabbos is not to eat. So it says, very interesting. B'yanis Shteif sometimes didn't eat the Sudos, whenever he was very sick, couldn't eat. He said, it's not Oynik Shabbos. And Malav Malki forced himself to eat. Because Malav Malki says there it doesn't say Oynik. There it doesn't say it's Tali and Oynik. The week, he said it's Tali and Oynik. The Chassam Sofer, there's a Sefer as a Chroin. We'll close with this. Very interesting. And he writes that he had horrible dreams a whole summer. And he kept calling the people together, Talmidim. They did what's called, didn't tell them to fast. Doesn't say that he told them to fast. But they did what's called Pidyon Nefesh. Pidyon Nefesh was that they gathered people together and they, different shemas, they gave tzedakah, and they did it every night. And it was wearing people down already. And they said to the Chassam Sofer, maybe you just, he says, no. Maybe you're just frightened, depressed. He says, I'm not. What is the dream? You're not supposed to say what the dream is. You're not supposed to say what the dream is. And then there was a flood, the river flooded, and there was a whole story, and Yidden were saved. They said to the Chassam Sofer, oh, this is it? He said, no. There's something else happening. Lamaisi writes, that year Napoleon pulled up around Pressburg, and he threatened that if you don't open up the doors of the city, he's going to bomb them with whatever cannons that existed that were still pretty lethal in those days. And the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, the kings ran away. They weren't there. They said, no, you can kill the whole Pressburg. We're not letting you in. Go ahead, as long as we're here, right? And they started bombing. And I'm not going to see this as a Sefer HaZechron. It details day by day what went on. It's a fascinating thing. L'maisa, not a single person in the kill of some Sefer was killed by any of the bombings. And except for there was a person, he says his name. Some Sefer says his name, so obviously it must be up here. Allah doesn't even have his name. Wolf Kamering. And the Chassam Sofer writes about this Wolf Kamering, and apparently this is his tikkun. That's why the Chassam Sofer writes it. He says he was an agent for renting out apartments. And the Chassam Sofer called him in once and said, he wants a rent freeze. Okay? He did it just the raw of asking without having to run for office. Too much. Chas v'shalom. Just leave it the way it is. He said, no, well, we can't. He says, for 6 months, hold the rents. He said, I don't plan on doing it. So he said, I'm the Rav of the town. I'm telling you to do it. He says, you're not authorized to tell me to do it. So the Chassam Sofer answered him that there's precedence for it. He has a right to do it as the Rav of the town. And he answered in ultimate chutzpah, you're not my Rav. I'm not from this Kehal, you're not my Rav. And the Chassam Sofer said he wrote his own obituary then. Because if he's not his Rav, he's not under the protection of the Chassam Sofer. So they asked the Chassam Sofer afterwards, but Lamaisa it says, the Gemara says that a person that's lon b'layla b'toira ain't levasin loisei psuras rais. They don't give him any bad psuras. So how did you have bad psuras? He says, what's called a bad psura? A bad psura is, if I warn you, be careful. Don't go there! Is that a bad psura? So I have a friend that crashed into a tree. He fell asleep and he crashed into a tree. I said, how could you? How could you? So I'm like, he says, you don't realize you're falling asleep when you're driving, your family's in the car? He says, I didn't chap I was sleeping because when I was sleeping, I was dreaming the road. So in my dream, I was still driving. The problem was the road in his dream went one way and the real road went another way. So to wake him up and say, you're going to crash, he says, that's not a psura ra. Sometimes there are things in our life that frighten us or scare us. And as a result, I said, I have to deal with this. And how do I deal with it? So contemporary poskim don't like the idea of fasting so much as one as because it depresses us and that it's counterproductive. But I simply say, what can I change in my life? What can I change in my life? Let me make one move in the direction of the Rebbeinu Shalom. And that's it, and you're mevatel the gzeira. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't ask a lot from us. It just asks us to recognize it. So I'll just close with this. I know I closed a few times already, but I remember that life is complicated. You say one thing, you mean something else. Not today, but there's no construction today. I passed by a few days ago. There's this flagger holding the sign that says slow, and he's screaming at me, come on, move! Steer between the Kri and the Ksiv, right? Well, really close. I said, I have my 8th grade class. I taught for many, many years. I taught 8th grade for 40 years, almost 40 years. I say I got 10 years off for good behavior, but Akapanim. So I used to, when a kid would come late, he would bring a note. Purim, I would read the notes, and the kids had to guess who brought which note. Yeah. There's 2 notes I still have. 2 notes I still have. One note was that he says, please excuse Moshe for coming late. This is what it said. His grandmother had a baby, and he had to stay home to watch his aunts and uncles. And it was true. I said, it shows us the life that we're in. The other note, the kid wrote himself. He said, Rebbe, he says, I woke up on time, I came to yeshiva, I sat down with my daven, I sat down, ate breakfast, sat down with my svarim, I was ready to go, and then all of a sudden I realized it was a dream. So how did I know to wake up if in my dream I was up? I said, he got me on it, right? So there are events that take place in our life that rattle us a little bit. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't rattle us unless we can do something about it. He doesn't make us worried about something. If we get rattled or we get a message from Shemayim, it's a sin because you can do something about it. You can wake up. And that's what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants from us. He wants us to wake up and make a little bit of a move in the right direction. And that, as the Shem Yisbarach will be, Yafachti, Misvedi, Lamachali, Bitachta Saki, Vati Azreini Simcha. Thank you.